This is Teofimo Lopez, the next big thing in boxing, The Takeover, and you're listening to the Ringside Boxing Show.
Live from Monterey on California's beautiful Central Coast, this is the Ringside Boxing Show. I'm Dennis Taylor, welcoming you to join me and my expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and John J. Raspanti today and every week for the hottest, sweatiest show on the West Coast. And now, from Studio 1A, it's the Ringside Boxing Show.
Welcome to the Ringside Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm Dennis Taylor, and you guys are going to love this week's show. In a short while, John Raspanti and I are going to be talking to the man who came within, I'd say, about 1 pint of Tyson Fury's blood from pulling off one of the biggest upsets in the history of boxing. Otto Wallin is going to join us all the way from Sweden to discuss his near miss on September 14th at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, where Tyson Fury fought for more than 9 rounds with a couple of the nastiest cuts that we've seen in a long, long while in professional boxing, both of them above the right eye. Why Tony Weeks or the Ring Doctor did not stop the fight is still a matter of controversy, so stay with us for that. This is going to be a really interesting one. Before Otto Wallin, we'll be hearing from our British correspondent, Paul McLaughlin, who's going to talk to us about how Derek Chisora apparently turned down the chance to fight Joe Joyce after Joseph Parker pulled out of their fight. Charlie Edwards' decision to vacate the flyweight title, and Kell Brook's thoughts about facing Amir Khan finally in a showdown. But we'll lead it off, as we do every week, with our expert analyst. Travis Hartman is a professional boxer, trainer, and promoter from Osborne, Missouri. He's now living and training in Orlando, Florida. Rizwaan Zahid is a boxing journalist from Toronto, and John J. Raspanti is chief lead writer for MaxBoxing.com and DogHouseBoxing.com, and John and I are co-authors of Intimate Warfare, the true story of the Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward boxing trilogy, and Amazon bestseller. Guys, Gennady Golovkin and Sergiy Derevyanchenko gave us a war at Madison Square Garden. Travis, Golovkin eked out a close decision from the judges, a verdict that could have gone probably either direction. Before they even read the scores, you declared that you thought something was wrong with Golovkin in that fight. What did you observe there? Why did you think that was true?
Yeah, because there were some rumblings behind the scenes that he had had a flu or he had a cold coming in, and he also had missed the post weigh-in. The IBF requires you to weigh in the day of the fight. It can't be over 10 pounds, I think is what it is. And Golovkin missed that weight as well. So I know something was up, because Golovkin's a very, very fit guy. He trains hard. He's very disciplined. So when something like that happens, it makes me wonder if something physically or something like that you couldn't control, like a sickness was going on. And I think it's very, very easy when a guy's 37 years old and he fights a really tough opponent and doesn't look like the old Golovkin like we're used to seeing. It's very easy, I believe, to say, oh my gosh, he's getting older. But I don't buy that yet. I mean, he's 37, and we see so many guys that are going well into their 40s, their early 40s easily, and they're looking phenomenal still. I mean, Juan Manuel Marquez got one of his greatest knockouts of his career. I think he was dang near 40 years old when he knocked out Manny Pacquiao. So I don't believe Golovkin got old overnight, because mainly his biggest attribute was his power anyways, and his power is one of the last things that goes, that they always say when you get older. But last night, I just think he had a rough and tough opponent, and I think Jonathan Banks, which is Golovkin's trainer now, I think he was brutally honest at the end, and he said the scorecards were he thought they should have been closer, which I don't know how much closer you can get with those scorecards without giving a decision to the other guy, but Jonathan Banks actually did say that. But Jonathan Banks also said that he knew going into this fight, because of the style of Derevyanchenko, it's an awkward style. He's a technician. It's not an awkward style. He's a very good boxer, and his nickname is a technician, and he gives a lot of people trouble. I mean, we know that for a fact because we saw him, and his only loss as a pro was to Danny Jacobs, and Danny Jacobs, by all means, is a legit contender as well. So I think Derevyanchenko showed us last night that, yeah, he's still the real deal. He's still a good fighter who's barely lost twice now. And I think last night I wasn't upset with the scorecards at all. I think the scorecards, I think that they were fair and they were pretty close, and that's what I was happy to see. That I think all three judges gave a fair account for watching that fight. I didn't see any crazy scorecards. As you know, that we're used to seeing crazy scorecards in Canelo Alvarez fights. Even in really close fights, we see these crazy scorecards like a 118, 110, when we all know the fight was super, super close. But last night, I was happy with the scorecards. I really was. I could have seen this fight being a draw or just barely the other way. But honestly, I was very happy, and I think that Golovkin has been on the wrong side of a couple of bad, close decisions. I mean, against Canelo, we all know that the first one was probably a lot more people leaning towards Golovkin in that first fight. So if Golovkin gets one close decision in his career, I think it's okay. I mean, it was a war last night, and Golovkin genuinely does land the bigger, more effective punches as well. And I think that's probably what the judges scored last night. And overall, thought it was a great fight. And I don't think last night for sure is a night that we can call some kind of a robbery or a bad decision. Not even close. I think we should enjoy that we saw one heck of a fight last night. We saw a fight of the year candidate possibly as well. I mean, there was a knockdown early, and Derevyanchenko rallies back against arguably one of the all-time greats of this generation, which is Golovkin. I mean, he's for sure a future Hall of Famer already. So, I mean, that was an amazing fight. And like I said, I think something was Golovkin's such a classy guy that I don't believe he'll ever make excuses after a fight, which he didn't, which I expected that. But behind the scenes, I'm pretty positive, guys, that there was a sickness leading up to that fight. The week of the fight, I believe he had the flu or something, and I think it showed. And I think that we're really, really a lot of writers and journalists, well-respected ones, are kind of quick to jump on that "oh, he's getting old" train, which I'm not making that decision yet. I don't think he got old last night. I just think that there was something going on, and it showed, in my opinion. But I still thought he won, though. I thought it was a very close fight. I wouldn't have been disappointed with the draw, but I was very, very comfortable with the 114-113 scorecard. Without the knockdown, it would have been drawn one of those scorecards. So I was comfortable with the 114-113 scorecard, and the 115-112 was a fair scorecard as well.
And Riz, you're leaning more toward Golovkin being an old fighter who's been through a lot of wars, and that's what we saw, aren't you? He's lost a couple miles per hour on his fastball.
I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's both. Eddie Hearn did come out after and say that Golovkin was struggling all week, and Golovkin didn't miss the second-day weigh-in, but it took him 2 attempts, and I heard he had to strip down pretty much to make it, which, like Travis said, that's pretty unheard of for Golovkin because he's not a big middleweight either, right? He's always really comfortably making weight, so that would fit. And if you guys remember earlier, a couple years ago, he also had a fight where he was sick, and still even after the fight refused to ever say that, I wasn't feeling well. Like he just, it's not in his DNA to say that. But that's why the funny thing is the first couple rounds, I mean, obviously I think he looked great, but I think part of him maybe thought that, if I could get this guy out of here, maybe no one will know I was sick. And then, Derevyanchenko had to have, Derevyanchenko, he was desperate in so many ways. He had to fight desperate. Then after the knockdown and the cut, understanding that it could be stopped at any time, he knew he had to get even more desperate. And on top of that, he is a difficult fighter and doesn't have a lot of marketability either, which means that for him to get another big fight is going to be, it's not going to happen. So he knew this was going to be, his last hurrah. So for Golovkin had to really dig deep. And it's, one thing about Golovkin, I think we've seen it when the fights have went late. He's won pretty much, for the majority of people would say, pretty much all championships rounds against, Jacobs, Canelo both times, and Derevyanchenko, or at least most of them. Mm-hmm. And that's what a true champ does. Because in that fight, there's especially that 10th round when Derevyanchenko landed a sick body shot. We've never seen Golovkin stumble remotely. And that was a punch where you saw that, holy crap, that actually hurt him. And then in round 12, and combine that with the fact that he had some sort of illness, maybe a flu of some sort, and then obviously there's a weight issue of some sort. Combine that all with all the adversity, and then in the 11th and 12th comes back and wins those. It just says the champ that he is. You got to feel for Derevyanchenko just because he could very well be undefeated with wins over Jacobs and Golovkin, which is really something to be said. But for me, it's not Golovkin looked old last night. I've been saying this for a while. I've noticed a very slight regression over the last couple of years, and it doesn't have to be much, but it adds up. I mean, 3 or 4% times 4 or 5 fights, you're talking about 15-20%, and that adds up when you're going against a guy who's, Derevyanchenko is about 33, but he's not an old 33. He's a very young 33. Turned pro really late. He has a good amateur background and all that, but you can tell just by going watching that and watching his other fights even, he doesn't have a lot of miles on him, so he is the fresher fighter in various ways. So I think there's definitely more than one issue there. I mean, and Travis is right. You can't just say, "Oh, Golovkin's old. That's it. He should retire." I don't agree with that at all. Because in that first, no one's saying that after the first round or the second round, right? And then another thing is, as much as we completely rip apart judges, we got to give some credit to judges here, because if you look at the scorecards, the judges didn't agree on one single, on maybe, I think outside of the first round with the knockdown, I think round 11 for Golovkin, maybe another round here or two for Derevyanchenko. But, I mean, it was just that close of a fight where every round was kind of a toss-up. So I don't think, it wasn't one of those, it wasn't even the selection either, when you see sometimes judges, they select 3 judges with the exact same judging style, and they produce 3 of the same scorecards. We didn't get any of that either. And anyone saying it's a robbery, that's ridiculous. I mean, I thought Derevyanchenko won, but I literally thought he won by 1 point. And like I just said, there's so many rounds that are toss-ups. And the other thing is, you got to remember, a lot of people like to say, "Oh, I think blah, blah, blah won." All right, well, what was your scorecard? "Oh, I didn't score it." All right, well, that's how boxing fights are scored. You got to go round by round and add them up at the end.
Per round,
right? If you're not doing that, then none of this matters, because as much as Golovkin dominated probably round 11 and Derevyanchenko probably dominated round 10, one of the toss-up rounds are just scored the same. All of those are scored 10-9. So it's very easy just to say, "Oh, I thought blah 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 won the fight," but you gotta add it up and see where you're at. And again, it was close, and unfortunately for Derevyanchenko, in so many ways, the Jacobs fight and the Golovkin fight, the knockdowns in both of those first rounds, and both of them he was stumbled and he was hurt a bit, but both of them he got back up right away. But both of those in so many ways, I wouldn't say cost him the fight, but may have been the swing round in the entire fight. But it's, and what I'm wondering for Golovkin is, I mean, there's definitely elements of him being ill. Again, Eddie Hearn said that after, but Golovkin will never confirm it. But the other thing is, this is something Lennox Lewis told me when he fought, a couple of years ago when he was talking about his fight with Vitali. He said it was really hard for him to get motivated after fighting Tyson, right? I mean, he beat Tyson, so Golovkin definitely just is motivated for Canelo, and I wonder how motivated he is for other guys. Because he said, I don't know if you guys saw this, the day before, 2 days before the fight, he said, "I'm not worried about any opponent beating me. I'm worried about my own motivation and my age factoring into retirement." And that was an odd thing to see. I mean, at 37, I think every fighter is probably thinking about that a little bit. And I'm sure, him being sick and all those things maybe kind of got into his head a little bit, and he's saying maybe just having a tough week. But him talking about retirement, well, he never really talked about it at all a year or two ago. He always said, "Nope, I feel great, I feel young." But this time, he even let just a little bit of a glimpse. Again, he was sick during the week, so that might have factored into his thinking. But it was a difficult fight last night, and there's a lot of very difficult middleweight fights. And the funny thing is, between Golovkin and Canelo, I think each of them are better suited to each other's styles than guys like Demetrius Andrade or Billy Joe Saunders. And I'm not saying that Canelo or Golovkin wouldn't beat those fighters, but you can see style-wise how they're brutal fights for them. And that's why, to me, it's still a little shocking that Canelo, and again, the betting odds show it, right? Canelo's a 5-1 favorite over Kovalev, which is, I think, is very heavy, but
wow.
Canelo is, think about it this way. Luis Ortiz is more favored to beat Wilder in a rematch than Kovalev is favored to beat Canelo, which is shocking to me.
Huh.
But it's funny that Canelo is willing to move up 2 weights rather than fighting Golovkin or Saunders. Or when to me, and again, I've been saying this for a while, we noticed in the first to second fight that Golovkin regressed a little bit too. I think right now is the perfect time for Canelo to fight Golovkin. I don't think he's going to get much credit, though, to be honest, but I think he'll get even less credit 6 months or a year from now if he elects to fight him. So, and again, I said this after even the second fight, that Canelo's just pretty much just entered his prime, and Golovkin is, if we're not gonna, even if you don't agree that Golovkin is older, I think we can agree that he's at the tail end or exiting his prime. So to me, it's just surprising that Canelo wouldn't want to fight Golovkin at this stage. But for Golovkin, I mean, I don't know where he goes from here, because he had a good win last night, but you can tell it's just getting harder and harder and becoming more taxing on him. But I mean, again, the flu definitely, or whatever the sickness was, definitely contributed to that. We'll see who ends up fighting in this next fight, because I just think every fight he has from here on out is going to be tough.
I think a rematch. I think he'll do it.
You know what? I wonder if he, if there's one person who's going to give a tough fight like that a rematch, it's Golovkin. Because the funny thing is, Derevyanchenko was Golovkin a few years ago, right? He's a very good fighter who didn't get a lot of big fights, where a lot of guys didn't really want to fight him, and it's kind of hard luck in so many ways. And then Golovkin gives him that shot. So you're right. I wouldn't be surprised if anyone's going to give a rematch like that. It's Golovkin. But I mean, again, there's other fights for him. Daniel Jacobs rematch maybe. But I mean, I think you're right. I think we've seen those fights before, a close fight and a close decision, and then one guy says, you know what? No, I'm gonna put any doubt to rest, and that's what Mayweather did against Castillo. That's what obviously Roy Jones and Montel Griffin. There's so many of those. Paul Williams when he lost a close decision to Quintana. You're right. There's absolutely a lot of those, and I give Golovkin a hell of a lot of credit if he gives a rematch, because I don't think there's a lot of guys who want to fight Derevyanchenko at all.
Nope.
Yeah, Golovkin saying this morning that let's do it. He's up for a rematch. So we'll see what happens there. For anybody who didn't see the scorecards, they were 115, 112 twice, and 114, 113. John, who won the fight? How did you see it? How did you score it? And also, where do you stand on this? Is this one of those moments when you're thinking, walk away, GGG? You've had a great career, or does he have some magic left somewhere?
I had Golovkin winning by a point, because he won the last two rounds. Dennis, he landed a wicked shot at the end of the 12th round to win the round. That was the way I saw it. And again, when you're writing and watching, sometimes it's hard. I usually go back and after I've written something to watch the fight just as a judge, and then I write Max Boxing scored the fight. But I was doing it both. I was multitasking, and I had him winning the fight by a point. I was a little surprised how confident he looked when the decision was being announced, because I wasn't that confident. I was figuring at least a split decision. But I have to comment too. See, I believe I agree more with Riz on this. I think Golovkin has been showing signs of erosion for a few years. You've got to remember, this is a guy with 400 amateur fights, now over 40 professional fights. He's 37 years old. Some guys are just amazing that they can keep going with his style and the way he stalks and rocks. And lately, I think you can just see that he's just slowed down a little bit, and just that little bit of slowing down has allowed these other guys to catch up with him a little bit. So it's Mother Nature. You can't beat it. But and then the fact that he was ill, I think. So I agree with that what everybody said. I think that it was that. But Derevyanchenko, man, the technician, that's true. He hit Golovkin with a body shot in round 5, I believe it was, or 6, and it hurt Golovkin. I've never seen him hurt like that, and he got hurt. He got wobbled. What was it, round 10 also, and that was stunning. You don't see that. Now, again, he was probably not himself as far as the flu goes, but then again, as I just said, he's not what he was either before. I mean, he doesn't rip to the body like he used to, and I think he's just not as stalking and as ferocious, and guys know it now. It really makes me mad, because just as a boxing fan too, I'm very annoyed at Canelo. I saw Canelo before the fight saying, he's not even a challenge anymore. I won both fights. I'm like, come on, man. Don't say that stuff, because that's silly. That's almost like politicians do now. They lie through their teeth, and you just go, what? What did he just say? Yep. So I was a little disappointed in Canelo saying that, because Golovkin took Canelo to hell, and he knows that. And again, I've been saying this because it's been annoying me for a long time. This was an older Golovkin did this. What would have a Golovkin that I feel like was in his prime would have done? He'd have beat him easier, I think. Just my opinion. But I think if I'm Golovkin, no, I don't retire, Dennis. I think to myself, look, I got to find out. I wasn't feeling very good. It might have affected my training. I need to be 100% healthy. I need to fight this guy again. That's what I would do. I would fight Derevyanchenko again. People want to see it again, obviously. A rematch is a natural. It's like the old days. And like Riz said, Golovkin will do it. He's that kind of a guy. He will do it. He'll fight him again. The style is right for him. I think even though Derevyanchenko is faster, hands are faster, Golovkin comes in at 100%, then we see, because, again, when you hit a certain age, I know it's kind of a broken record here, but we see what you got left. And I think Golovkin, I'll just say it right now, I think he'll look better the next time they fight, especially if he's healthy, and I think he will be. I did think he looked sluggish at certain points of the fight, but I don't want to take anything away from Derevyanchenko. I completely agree that the guy is hard luck. He's tough as they come. He dug to the body. He worked the body. I mean, they were pretty shots. I mean, the guy is a technician. He's kind of awkward, but I actually agreed with you when you said that, Travis. He comes not awkward in the sense of the word awkward. This doesn't make any sense, but his angles, the way he uses angles, guys that are really good, have really good amateur pedigrees, you could see it because they figure out other ways to hit other fighters. So it was very fascinating when you got these two really good amateur fighters when they were younger fighting each other because they're trying things on each other and going, no, that's not going to work. No, that's not going to know. He's seen that. So in a way, it was a little bit of a thinking contest, but then they were just letting go with their shots, and it was wicked. And just think, 2 weekends in a row, we've had two really good fights. Spence Jr. and Porter, and now Golovkin and Derevyanchenko. And I was really wondering, Dennis, this fight was getting no buzz. And any of us that know boxing knew that Derevyanchenko, you're talking about, he was more than a live underdog. I mean, it was very grudging that we were picking Golovkin. We figured that this was really going to be a tough fight, and Golovkin was a 4-1 favorite, which I was like, what? I had him in an article I was working out in my head as a 2-1 favorite. I thought that Derevyanchenko, if he has a really good night and he's totally motivated, which he was, and Golovkin has which is kind of what happened, I believe, this guy can win the fight. And through 8 rounds, I thought Derevyanchenko was going to win. So whatever, it wasn't a robbery. I agree with the guys. No way was it a robbery. People love to throw that word out, robbery. No, I can certainly see where some people thought Derevyanchenko won. Wouldn't have made me upset if he had got the decision, mostly because, as Riz said, the guy is a Golovkin in a way. He has paid his dues, got up to his pro career kind of late. He's a really good fighter, deserves to be a champion. So my hope right now, Dennis, is that they just fight again. They settle it again in the ring, and we'll find out more about Golovkin. If he struggles even worse and he comes in healthy, then we'll know that he's on that slow, steady downward spiral, which unfortunately happens to a lot of fighters. Not all, but a lot of fighters. Or if he comes back and looks better, which I actually think he will, and win, then he's looking at some of these young guys, or who knows, maybe Canelo will change his mind, but I don't really think Canelo's still mad about everything Golovkin said, and it's very personal with him, so I don't really think he wants to give him a fight because he doesn't want him to make the kind of money. So it's like that.
Yeah, get over it, Canelo.
Yes.
Hey, what did you guys think of these two younger guys we saw last night? Israil Madrimov and Boots Ennis. Travis, how'd you like those guys? These guys might be the future of the welterweight / super welterweight / middleweight division, huh?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to have the other guys field that question because I didn't really get a chance to see those guys as much as I would have liked.
Okay.
I can't really form a good opinion now. I'm definitely going to have to yield to Riz and John on this one.
Okay.
I'll take it.
Riz, you saw me. Yeah, go ahead.
Both of them look like the real deal. Akhmedov he's a little more refined, but he just has, the knockout he scored last night. It wasn't one of those like, oh my God, brutal highlight reel knockouts, but it was just, it blows you away from a technical perspective. It was just a perfect sidestep, perfect right hand on just perfectly timed in every which way, and that's it. Like very, very simply done, but he just does everything really, really well. And again, we've already seen some elements of this. We're seeing a lot of the Eastern European, but not just from like Ukraine and Russia, but we're seeing like Golovkin obviously has some connection to Ali, being from Kazakhstan, and he is an absolute beast, and he's still only 24 years old, and I think what you're finding is a lot of these guys, we're seeing kind of both sides. We're seeing guys like Lomachenko who turned pro late and kind of not rush their career, but don't really waste fights. Then we're seeing guys who turn pro after maybe one Olympic run, or maybe not even an Olympic run, just a strong amateur background, and then go from there. That's the latter is Akhmedov, and him beating Andrew Hernandez. 44 seconds, and it was just a perfect shot. And it wasn't one of the ones that's crazy on the chin and lay you out. It was just so perfectly done. And and is Andrew Hernandez a top fighter? No, but not by any means. But he's the guy who's fought prospects, and he's fought up and coming guys. He went the distance with Caleb Plant. He got knocked out by Jesse Hart, but besides that was his only knockout in the last 5 years. And he's shown to be at least a sturdy, ready opponent, and it was on short notice too. But Akhmedov is definitely the real deal. But but like you said, there's so many of these guys who are ready for those. There's such beautiful amateur prospects that are coming out from the amateur game into the pro game, and they're just ready. Israil Madrimov, he's only 3-0, or 4-0 now, which is a little crazy because watching him fight, you're just looking at him and you're like, he looks so much more refined, and he's called Little Golovkin, and you see definitely elements of it. He has a little more footwork, but he's still definitely getting used to the pro game because he was winging some shots later. But then you remember he's only 4-0, right? The guy has so much time ahead of him, and he's still just going to get better and better and better and better. And there's just and then honestly, the funny thing is at super middleweight, Akhmedov might not be the best. Forget the best prospect. The best prospect from Kazakhstan even, because Nurzat Sabirov is actually fighting out of Montreal. He's also 10-0 with 9 knockouts. You're seeing and I think this is a Golovkin effect in some ways, because these guys are all kind of 10-0 roughly, turned pro around 2016, 2017, and that's when Golovkin really rose to stardom. And I think he had to be the pioneer for these guys, because Golovkin could have easily just fought in Europe for most of his career, but he dared to be great. He came over and fought on undercards and wasn't really, his career was kind of stagnant, and you're finding other guys kind of make the same move now, just the same way how Klitschko's and kind of set the precedent for a lot of guys from Ukraine to kind of do the same thing. So these guys are great, and they're going to be great. But again, like guys like Madrimov, the guy's 4-0, and he's already accomplished so much, and he's also only 24 years old, and he's from Uzbekistan. And again, he knocked out Alejandro Barrera last night. Barrera's only been knocked out once before, and that was Errol Spence a few years ago. So, and I'm looking at side by side, both round 5 knockouts, pretty much 1 minute apart. Except Errol Spence was 18-0, and Madrimov was only 3-0. It's amazing. Like these guys are quickly becoming must-watch prospects. Usually, a lot of these prospects you don't really pay that much attention to, especially when they're. Let's face it, from entertainment value, when all their fights are going the distance. That's what's crazy about these guys. These are all beautiful knockout punchers too. And just like Golovkin, their power doesn't. It's not their power that does it. It's their technique that leads to the crushing knockouts. So it kind of these guys are naturally made stars as far as their boxing ability, because their technique is perfect. They score highlight reel knockouts, and it just satisfies both, the boxing fans who want to see knockouts and the guys who want to see technique. These guys there's something special. But again, this is just a tip of the iceberg, because there's so many more of these guys coming up.
John, how do you like Boots Ennis?
Oh yeah, very, very, very impressive. All the young guys that fought last night were impressive. Ali, the little Golovkin, like Riz was talking about, he was also very impressive. Some of the criticism, I can't help it. I go on social media and I read some of the comments, and I just think Israel's getting ripped for some of his off-balance punches. I mean, come on, guys. You know, this is his fourth pro fight. He's a little raw in places, but it's just like I don't think boxing fans are the most critical of anyone. I think maybe that's just the way it is in this sport. But people just don't sometimes want to either see it or admit how good these young guys are. I mean, the talent, the depth of the talent. I mean, that right hand that Ali won with, that was right on the temple. That was a perfect shot. That was beautiful. Mm-hmm. And he's also trained by Jonathan Banks, and they look like the real deal to me too. I mean, I agree with Riz. I was anxious to see them as much as I was to see Golovkin, the Golovkin fight, because they've got talent galore, and they're young and fresh and all those things, and they were all quick knockouts pretty much every fight. And the young, I just say this because it was like, the young Joe Ward, who made his debut, dislocated his kneecap. It looked like it was just, kind of a weird night at Madison Square Garden last night. But it's nice to see the young prospects, even though they didn't get pushed very hard. And the guy that we interviewed a few years ago, Baranchek, Dennis, he looked good. I mean, if there's any guy that has a fit, that has a nickname that fits, the Beast. I mean, he's trying to knock your head off before he even gets to the ring. He's winging shots, you know? And he was putting everything into those punches, and he finally he won by stoppage, and he looked good. He is going to be a tough fight. I don't see him beating any of the really top guys, but they better keep their guard up, because if he catches you, he's not a one-punch knockout guy, but he's a clubber. You know, he's like a doubles guy in baseball. He is so shot, and they can be wicked. He catches you with one of those clubbing shots, you're in trouble. So I was happy for him, because that loss to Taylor really devastated him. So as far as that goes, that was a really good card, and the young guys, they delivered last night. There were a number of complaints that the competition wasn't very good, but it was, I guess you could call it a showcase night. But you have to have these in boxing. You know, you can't. You put your young guys in with very competitive fighters at some point, but at some point you move them slow. You know, there's always the danger, and that's what I worry about sometimes. Is we want to move these guys too fast. You don't have to do that. You know, you can just do what you're doing. Let them fight. Let them have a showcase fight, and then the next fight, put them in there with somebody a little bit more competitive. To show, and it's a growing experience. So let's see what happens with these guys. But if anything, boxing is so much fun to watch these guys develop. There's nothing like it. You usually every fight you could see something else. They're getting a little better. They worked on that a little bit in camp, and you see the difference. So it's cool. I really enjoy that, probably more than anything in boxing.
You're listening to the Ringside Boxing Show from Monterey, California. I'm Dennis Taylor. We're talking to our expert analyst, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, Raspanti. Let's switch gears here, guys. Let's address a remarkable incident that led to the cancellation of Claressa Shields' world title defense against Ivana Habazin, which was supposed to be Showtime's main event on Saturday. Their fight was called off after a man, allegedly Shields' brother, sucker punched Ivana Habazin's 69-year-old trainer, James Ali Bashir, after Friday's weigh-in. The weigh-in was over. Bashir goes struck from behind, reportedly was knocked out cold for several minutes. Somebody said 20 minutes. He was taken to a hospital where he had surgery to repair multiple broken bones in his face. Bashir Habazin is Bashir is Habazin's chief trainer, and so she pulled out of the fight. Travis, this is another really ugly black eye for the sport we love. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, I mean, it just sucks because John brought the point last week that last week we had an amazing fight with Errol Spence and Sean Porter. This week we have Triple G and Derevyanchenko. They just totally delivered. And then now, unfortunately, this is something that we have to talk about and we have to address. But it's sad. If you watch all of the videos, there were some back and forth by Bashir, the old man that got hit. He's 69 years old. And he was shouting some things back and forth, but at the end of the day, we're words are words. Physical pain, nobody deserves to have that. And the sad thing about all of this is, if these two would have been facing each other, and this younger person had punched the old man, and the old man was saying some derogatory things. I watched the video and I did hear some of the things he was saying. He was obviously a little mad about some things that happened in the weigh-in. But the worst thing about all of this is the fact that Claressa Shields' team decided to come up from behind on this old man and hit him like they did. And he was on the ground, guys. And when I watched the video, there was just blood splattered all over the ground. He was completely unconscious. Yeah. It was one of the most terrifying, sad, angering things. I went through so many emotions when I watched that. It was unbelievable. My heart just kind of dropped a little bit, thinking that this old man, who is damn near 70 years old, got blindsided, a cheap shot, a sucker punch by a younger person that's supposed to be involved with, one, a two-time Olympian in Claressa Shields, a very professional event, and they sucker punched the old man and almost took his life. And I mean, let's be honest, we don't even know what's going to happen. There's got to be some lasting effects. He's 70 years old. He's 69 years old, almost 70 years old, and he's recovering, had to have face surgery. There was blood just all over the ground, and his head was literally, the fall probably hurt him just as much as well when his head probably hit the pavement. Or it wasn't pavement, but it was a hard ground. So, I mean, there's so much wrong with this, Dennis. It's not even funny. I can't even. I understand that the entertainment value of boxing, people come to weigh-ins because they like to see that violence. They do. They like to see violence. They like to see boxers kind of argue, get into it, even push each other a little bit. But this was overboard, and we all know this. This was more than overboard. This was against the law. You physically assaulted somebody when you weren't even looking. So one, that's against the law, and two, it's outside the bounds. I get it. Boxing is violent. I get it that we try to sell fight. But it was clearly that this wasn't trying to sell a fight. When you put physical danger on, not only that, the opponent's coach. So that just makes it look bad all around, guys, because the fact is that Claressa Shields was kind of giving the other girl crap for pulling out of the fight. And I'm like, that's her coach. And then that was the one thing I didn't understand about Claressa's stance on all this. She was kind of calling the other girl out for pulling out, and I'm just like, that's literally her coach, and I'm a professional boxer, and I know how close I am with not only my dad, who's my coach, I'm also close with my other coach, which is Marcos Ramirez, and if they were put in the hospital because of something like that happened, my mind wouldn't be right. I would be so physically angered, and it takes a lot to get me angered, that I couldn't fight a disciplined, productive fight because I would want to kill that person. I literally would. I mean, let's even take it to the exaggeration effect. That's an attempted murder that the guy did on this old man. I mean, you come up from behind and you clocked him that hard that you knocked him unconscious. How do you know you're not going to kill the man? How do you know the fall's not going to kill the man? How do we even know that he's going to be better? I mean, it's just, there's nothing about yesterday at that weigh-in that was right, or Friday about that weigh-in, that anybody can even justify. And if you're trying to justify hitting an old man behind his back, you have bigger problems in life if you're honestly trying to justify sucker punching an old man. I don't care what this old man said. I don't care anything. You sucker punched him. If you're going to be a man because he was insulting you, then go to his face, shove him, push him, do whatever you want. But when you sucker punched a 69-year-old man, I mean, there's a special place in hell for somebody that does something like that, and I just can't believe it's done. And I don't want to say this is a fact, but I also heard rumors that they said on the video that you can hear Claressa Shields' dad tell this person to go over and do that. That's also, I'm sure the police are going to sort that out because there's tons of video of this, but I also heard that as well. I haven't seen that or heard that yet myself. So like I said, I'm not confirming that as a fact, but I'm just saying that is also out there as well. And I know that police are going to be looking at this very close because you can't tell somebody to go do that either. And if you're a father of Claressa Shields, you can't tell somebody to go do that and think that you're okay for doing it as well, because you're just as much of an accomplice if you're telling that person to harm another individual. So there's going to be a lot of bad go out this, guys, and hopefully we can put this all behind us and talk about how amazing boxing is and how amazing that Triple G and Derevyanchenko was, how amazing the Errol Spence and Sean Porter was, and we can move on with stuff, because this is sucky. This is a black eye. This is something that we shouldn't even really be talking about, but it's definitely, we need to address it, that's for sure. But Claressa Shields, she set herself back, and honestly, I hate to do this and lump this in there, but she set women's boxing back a lot by doing this.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the golden girl of boxing, right? Of women's boxing right now. She's two-time Olympic champion. You know, Riz, like Travis said, I felt like there was a window here for Shields to put some distance between herself and this incident. She's not the one who punched Havazin's trainer, but then Shields herself took the low road by accusing Havazin of looking for an excuse to get out of the fight. Shields wanted to know why Havazin couldn't find a substitute to be her chief second, which was pretty classless. Also, you know, like Travis said, another thing that reflects pretty directly is that according to these reports, Shields' father actually directed Shields' brother to sucker punch Bashir. Now, I don't think there's any doubt that the brother is facing aggravated assault charges, if he's the guy who did it, maybe prison time. But if Shields' dad nudged his son to commit this act, shouldn't he just be almost as responsible? Wouldn't you see him going to jail too?
I don't know. I mean, there's so much with the legal situation, but you know what? I've seen so many times, not maybe the exact same thing, but in boxing it's happened numerous times. We've seen Darrell's uncle sucker punch someone in the ring, and he's pretty much back in his corner the next fight, right? There's been a lot of these sort of instances, and again, this goes back to when this is what happens when there's never a commission, there's never a overseeing hierarchy, there's not a league like the NFL who can actually hand down punishments. So what happens is that these guys are, it's like, okay, you're banned from this commission. Great, we'll just drive 3 hours down the road and fight in a different state. And until, and this is, unfortunately, I don't think there's ever going to be a solution, because I think we're too far gone to ever have an overseeing hierarchy or league for boxing and have a commission and all those sort of things. I just don't think it's ever going to happen. So, from a legal standpoint, maybe he will be barred from being in a corner or doing something one fight, but that doesn't mean he can't be in a corner in another fight or in another state or something. So that's something I have a huge problem with. And I don't think Travis is exaggerating at all. I think Claressa has definitely set back with women's boxing, because I don't think she has much fanfare, to be honest. And, people are comparing what's the difference between her and someone like Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey's fights were finishes, though, and people like finishes. Boxing and other combat sport, it's not enough to just be to win. There's an entertainment value that has to be there. And the last Claressa Shields fight, people thought it'd be very. It was not very entertaining. It was sloppy in a lot of ways. There's still, I think, in Europe, there's still much better, like Katie Taylor. Like, there's still better, I think, talent actually out there for that. And stuff like this is just gonna harm her. And like Travis said, she's not really likable, right? I don't think anyone's ever said I'm a huge Claressa Shields fan, because I don't think she's really done. It's not all. I don't find her. I mean, I guess I know I'm not the right person to talk about this, but I don't think a lot of women necessarily find her super empowering or anything like that either. And again, a fight that's being canceled on 24-hour notice, and then you're ripping, and then even then her post after, she goes on social media after, she did apologize to her opponent and her opponent's team and her trainer and Bashir, but most of it was just apologizing to the city of Flint. And, I understand Flint has went through a lot, but that's still on you, right? This is, we said this before. Fighters, in the end, are the ones who make all decisions, get all the credit, get all the blame, everything, right? And that's, that goes to, and you know what? There's been numerous times where guys, when you think about this real stupid jerks who've been trainers over the years, none of them have even caused this kind of trouble. Right? Like, where we think of Danny Garcia's father has never prevented a fight from happening, right? Robert Guerrero's father never prevented a fight from happening. And these are some really loose cannons. So it's bad when these guys are thinking like, whew, I will never do something like that. That really says something. So I think it's good that we've had a couple of really great fights the last couple of weeks, because that really takes some of the attention away. But I definitely think that, right or wrong, Habazin should definitely get her purse, number one, because this is not anything that was caused by her or the opponent not making weight or anything like that. And I definitely think Shields' camp should be fined. Now, how that's paid, that's amongst themselves, I guess. But there has to be some sort of fine and some money going the other direction because, numerous people lost out on a lot of money on Saturday. And that includes also, think about all the fans who flew in for that fight. Think about the fans who drove in for the fight. Think about fans who had, hotel bookings and all those sort of things. There needs to be repercussions, and I think there needs to be a sort of reimbursement. Because I don't think we're going to get to this stage. I think it was a bigger fight we might have. But I wouldn't be surprised and in some ways kind of hope for a class action lawsuit of some sort because, like I said, there's a bunch of people who spent a lot of money and who are supposed to earn a lot of money who are not getting what they expected out of it. And it had nothing to do with a weather issue or a weight issue or anything like that. It had to do with one person's camp causing the entire disruption while the other person's camp was just weighing in to get the fight on. And that's pretty sad.
You know what, guys? It was a week for a 1-2 punch to women's boxing because this was also the week where Heather Hardy tested dirty, and she's denying it, of course, as they all do, and she's saying that it was some kind of a drug to treat menstruation symptoms. So we'll wait on that. But really bad week. John, you're our historian. I'm going to throw you something about the International Boxing Hall of Fame. My God, what a ballot this year. I think these guys are only allowed to vote for 4. And you got Jorge Arce, Timothy Bradley, Bayani Bungu, Joel Casamayor, Diego Corrales, Carl Froch, Bernard Hopkins, Sergio Martinez, Juan Manuel friggin' Marquez, Shane Mosley, Antonio Tarver, and Israel Vasquez. How do you pick 4?
Well, you're going to have to study it and think about it. I didn't even read that list. I mean, Jose Marquez definitely. I think actually that Carl Froch deserves to be in the Boxing Hall of Fame. I do. He only lost a couple of times, and we know who he lost to the other time, and he was a tough dude, limited in a sense in talent, but not when it came to heart and all those things. What were the other names?
Sugar Shane was one. Israel Vasquez and Bebop.
Well,
Diego Corrales.
Vasquez with his war. Vasquez with his fights, his war. His wars. Here's what I mean. You have to study this ballot and to figure this out because some years you have light years, some years you have years where you got almost too many guys. There's some that are on the edge. Sugar Shane, you can certainly make an argument that he should be in. His career might have went on too long. He lost some fights later in his career that you really don't even want to take into consideration because he was way past it. But it just tells you that we have a really good fighters. And the whole Hall of Fame argument is an interesting one, Dennis, because, when we were writing the book Intimate Warfare, before that, Arturo Gatti was elected into the Hall of Fame. And I ended up writing something about why I felt he was, even though talent-wise he might not be in the same league as obviously a Sugar Ray or anybody like that, but as far as entertainment value and as far as thrills and as far as all that, he did deserve to be there. So that's where you have these arguments, discussions. I know there are a number of people who don't feel that the guest we had on a few weeks ago, Donald Curry, deserved to be inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
You see, right. He had that 3 or 4 year dominance, and then after that it was over. So these guys, though, most of them sound like pretty much a no-brainer to me, unless, like I said, you have a new criteria, and I don't think you do. But let me say one thing about Claressa Shields that's
sure.
been bugging me since this whole thing happened, if you guys don't mind. I think she, in a sense, she needs an intervention as a person. I did not like the way she responded to this. You don't call out your opponent and say, "Oh, well, you're trying to get out of the fight." Come on, you have to acquire some class. And I don't like to say this because it comes across mean, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think you're either born with that or not, because the first thing she should have thought of was, oh gosh, look what happened. This was a sucker punch. Okay, I got my brother involved, but you don't have to go there, but you just say something like, this was really unfortunate. You don't wait 24 hours until somebody puts a statement together for you to post and you talk about what happened in Flint. You should instinctively know as a human being that what happened there. And I've seen some arguments about the trainer was talking trash. That always happens at these things. That doesn't mean that a guy who's got his back turned gets sucker punched, a 70-year-old man. I mean, it's disgusting. I completely agree with Travis. I think it's a no-brainer. I think that the argument about looking for a reason is stupid. I'm just telling it like the way I see it. I think people hate to apologize nowadays for some reason. That was instantaneous. If I had been her manager, I would have said, look, this was an atrocity. We need to say we're sorry about this. It shouldn't have happened. We understand why our opponent is pulling out of the fight. Not call her out and say, I don't get why you're pulling out. You should get another coach. And until somebody sits you down and says, look, this isn't a good look. I don't know. It's part of what makes Claressa the fighter she is the fact that she has an edge. We know that, I saw a video that Riz and Travis and I were talking about where she was at the fights, and she looks like she wants to get into fights all the time. Anybody who disagrees with her, she's going to get into a fight with. And I think if I was her, I would say, look, you're world champion, you're two-time gold medalist. You got to think with a little bit more. You have to think, look, I'm representing boxing here. I have to learn how to control myself in the sense that I don't react. I think a little bit before I react. And it's a publicity thing. If you want to build the sport of women's boxing, you don't do this. And I don't care, and women or men, it always hurts the sport when this kind of stuff happens. When Tyson bit Lennox Lewis, that was embarrassing as far as I was concerned.
Holyfield.
I'm sorry, Holyfield. So, I'm talking about when the press conference, Tyson bit. Remember they got into that brawl.
Tyson has bit a few people. It's easy to lose track.
Yeah, he bit his leg. Yeah, he bit his leg. Right. So that's what I'm talking about when they were wrestling. So yeah, he likes to bite people. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. But I just think she needs somebody to say, look, Claressa, you've got a really responsible. You've been calling yourself the GOAT. You've been okay, and I've read this. Christy Martin, I don't know about Ali, but they're not happy that she's saying that she's so vocal, she's all that stuff. I think in that sense, perhaps she's trying to build up interest, but it's not working. And as Riz said, fights go 10 rounds. Every fight goes 10 rounds. She's 9-0 with 2 knockouts. People get tired of that. We all have short attention spans. Look, I don't want to sit here and watch 10 rounds where it's just a big deal. So if she wants to be, this is my point here finally, if she wants to be the person who represents women's boxing and build it up, she has to take responsibility even when it's bad. Now maybe this is old school talking, but I don't care. Old school isn't always wrong. You want to be the top, you got to act like you're the top. And to me, show some class, show some regret, not 24 hours later. Know that, no, this was wrong. This shouldn't have happened. This is an older man. It should have never happened, period. That's all it should have been. Should have never happened. I'm sorry.
Compassion. Show some compassion. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's all. I'm off my soapbox. But, right, guys? I mean, you guys
You know what?
Me on this
I don't know why this just popped in my head, but I do see, maybe not in the same way, but I think Canelo and Claressa Shields are both surrounded by the same type of people. I think they're just both surrounded by a lot of just yes men and women, right? Where it's just there's never a sort of, and it's not just Canelo, it's just a lot of fighters over the years who just have this entourage of never having people say like, listen, you have to take some responsibility here. Yes. You have to say, I'm sorry, and that's something that I think John's already talked about this. It's something that irked me after Canelo tested positive. Never once did he say sorry to Golovkin. We'll fight again. We'll settle this. There was never this ownership of responsibility. It just said like, boom, contaminated meat. Claressa Shields has said the same thing. Like, oh well, you know what? I didn't do this, right? I didn't actually personally do this, so it's not my fault. And there's just and again, it's just this is why I have a problem with just quote unquote entourages, right? It's not it's not needed. And I think the guys who have the longest career, I don't know anyone besides their trainer who's ever with them. Bernard Hopkins fought till he was 50. I have no idea anyone who's ever been in his corner outside his trainer. Klitschko, pretty much the same thing. Outside of Jonathan Banks, Emmanuel Stewart, was there just a bunch of guys walking around with him who were at the and like no, right? Because this is not a party. You're a professional athlete, and the key is professional, right? The guys who are the people who are the fighters who are great. Some of them, yes, they have that entourage thing, and it still has made them great. Roy Jones, one of them, obviously De La Hoya too, and Pacquiao, obviously. But the other guys, they approach it like office. It's a 9 to 5. It's clockwork. Andre Ward, I don't think that guy ever has anything remotely close to an entourage. Virgil Hunter is probably the closest thing to his party animal, and I don't think Virgil Hunter is a party animal. And it just says like John says. This is what maybe I don't know if an intervention is needed, but again, who's going to be doing the intervening if the people around you are always just saying yes to everything you say? And again, there's no ownership or responsibility. And she doesn't have. I mean, Canelo still has the fanfare. Canelo still has the wins and all those sort of things. Mayweather kind of had the same thing. Claressa doesn't have that. You can again, like if you're a promoter and you're going to put her on shows, and you think and you've seen some of the numbers, and you're really trying to push women's boxing, and then she has a stupid incident like this, are you really inclined to give her a main event slot or something like that when you can put on Derevyanchenko and Danny Jacobs, and you're going to get a great fight, you're going to get better numbers, and you're probably not going to have to deal with any controversy, right? It's just something to think about.
Right. Yeah, I honestly, who does she have around her business-wise, though? It's just you would think that the people around her care about business more than anything, too. Not only compassion. I mean, sometimes compassion should trump business for sure, but even business-wise, how does she not have somebody around her? I know that was not an intended play on words, but that was pretty funny. Sorry, Travis, go on. But how does she really, though? Sometimes I'm funny when I don't even know it. But how does she really not have somebody around her that is just simply telling her these things? These are bad for business. It's two no-nos. It's one, it's incompassionate. I mean, if you want to talk about the greatest of all time, let's talk about Muhammad Ali. If an old man would have gotten sucker punched and knocked out at one of Muhammad Ali's weigh-ins or press conferences, Muhammad Ali would probably been the first person over there to help that old man up, to take care of that old man, to apologize for whatever happened. And that's why he's the greatest. You're the greatest because you have the most compassion. You have the most common sense. Muhammad Ali wanted to help people. He had that ability about him where he cared about people. And if Claressa wants to call herself the GOAT, then she's going to have to succumb to these criticisms that I'm saying right now is you're not the GOAT because you care about yourself right now. You care about yourself so much that when you apologize, you forgot about a 69-year-old man's life that you should have been more worried about. Even though Claressa didn't do it with her own hands, you could have at least cared enough to say, oh, my gosh, I am so sorry an old man got hurt, and then talk about your business, and then talk about the fight. But the fact that she didn't talk about that and more worried about her own self, that's why she's not the GOAT to the greatest woman of all time, what she wants to call herself. You are not the GOAT when you stop caring about other people. When you care about yourself more, you don't become the GOAT. You become a self-centered, arrogant person, and you will reap the benefits of that, which means you're going to get fights canceled. You're going to get promoters to pull out. You're going to get sponsors to pull away from her. And I think that's what we're going to slowly see, guys. You're going to start seeing some people start slowly distancing ourselves from her. And it's going to get worse. And I don't think that she's going to own up to it because, like you guys said, I don't think she has a lot of people around her. They're even smart business-wise, but obviously they're not even compassionate because that's the first thing I would tell her. Claressa, this is a sucky incident. Maybe it's not your fault, but come on. This old man is in the hospital having reconstructive facial surgery. Have some compassion. At least have some compassion. And I think that maybe in the coming weeks, you're probably going to see something about that. Maybe she'll go visit him in the hospital, maybe something. I'm hoping, at least. That's my hope. That if she's got somebody in front of her that's smart business-wise, then Claressa will go and visit this guy in the hospital or make some kind of gesture to this old man to know that she actually does care about somebody else other than herself. But right now, she's selfish to me, guys. And that's not the greatest of all time at all.
Hope so.
John, I'm going to take these two guys back to before they were born. But you remember, I'm sure, game between the Giants and the Dodgers. Koufax pitching against Marichal.
Yep.
Koufax, I think, buzzed Marichal. Marichal got mad when he said Roseboro, the catcher, threw the ball back too close to his ear, turned around, he hit Marichal over the head with a bat. There's an iconic photo, historic photo, Willie Mays cradling his opponent, John Roseboro's head. And he's weeping over Roseboro about how horrible this incident was. That's how a human being reacts to something like that.
Exactly.
These guys
exactly,
were
Dennis.
Absolutely arch rivals. And
you're talking about the Giants and the Dodgers.
Giants, Dodgers.
Right? You're talking about, you're talking Giants, Dodgers, and John Roseboro. I remember that picture so vividly. I remember when it happened. It was such a shocking thing, and Juan Marichal, it harmed his whole career after that. Because he didn't even act like he cared. And here comes Willie Mays to tend to John
Roseboro.
Yes, exactly. Yes. I mean, it was a terrible moment, but then it showed you the compassion and the empathy of the Say Hey kid to come in there and do what he did. And it's, I want to say, I hate to say it, it was a different time. I think there are compassionate people still, but like I said, I think you're either born with that or you're not. And Willie Mays that was Willie Mays. He was that kind of or still is that kind of a person. He's still with us. I'm so glad to say. But that was really that was in 1965, I think, if I remember correctly, Dennis. And that was just a shocking moment in sports where a guy takes a baseball bat to the head of the catcher. So that's a very good point. Very good point.
World-class stuff today from Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, John J. Raspanti. They are our expert analysts. Fantastic job, fellas, as always. Have a great week. Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Guys.
John Raspanti will be back in just a few minutes to help me interview Swedish heavyweight Otto Wallin. This is a fascinating conversation. You're just going to love it. Next up, though, our British correspondent, Paul McLaughlin, is going to catch us up on the boxing scene at the United Kingdom. He's got some really good stuff coming for you guys right up next.
If you like the Ringside Boxing Show, you're going to love the website, ringsideboxingshow.com.
What are you doing?
Hey guys, this is Benji Estevez, boxing referee from the East Coast, and you are here with Ringside Boxing Show. Welcome to the show.
Hey everybody, this is boxing referee Jack Reese, and you are listening to the Ringside Boxing Show.
Hey, this is Harvey Dock. I'm a professional referee, and I'm a fan of Ringside Boxing Show.
Hi, this is boxing referee Vic Draklich here with the Ringside Boxing Show. You're listening to the best in boxing.
Hi there, it's Paul McLaughlin with your weekly roundup of everything going on in the UK boxing scene at the moment. We start off with Derek Chisora, who was very upset about the news of Joseph Parker's withdrawal from his fight, but a replacement has been verbally agreed to face him at the O2, says manager David Hay. The British heavyweight is still set to appear on the Regis Progress Josh Taylor bill at the O2, with promoter Eddie Hearn considering a shortlist of new opponents after Parker was forced to pull out due to an illness. Hay admits that Chisora initially vented his dismay after being denied the Parker fight, but has quickly channeled his frustration into training with talks going on with a number of highly ranked contenders. However, we caught up with another promoter, Frank Warren, who has claimed that Chisora has turned down a lucrative fight with Joe Joyce.
We tried to make the fight with Derek and with Joe Joyce, and there was, and also we spoke about Daniel, but there was no interest there. We may offer him quite a bit of money for that fight, but he decided and signed for the Parker fight to be on the undercard of their show, and complained about it afterwards that he was on the undercard. Subsequently, as you just said, that fight's fallen out of bed, and we contacted him today to try and make the fight for Joe Joyce. He came back and said he wanted $5 million. He must be having a lot of heavy sparring. That's all I can say at the moment. I mean, it's just that's what you're dealing with. So, in other words, he doesn't want to fight either of the guys, and that's where he's at. But, you know, that would have been a main event. That would have been a main event fight. He would have been on an undercard, and we would have paid him well. But I mean, the money they talk about, these guys, is just stupid. It's beyond stupid. Just say you don't want to fight. Don't price yourself out of it. Just say, I don't fancy it. You know, I haven't got the balls to fight him. That's what they should say.
Elsewhere, Charlie Edwards has vacated the WBC flyweight title after expressing concerns about making the weight during his controversial no contest against Julio Cesar Martinez 5 weeks ago. Now, Martinez was declared the winner by third-round knockout on the undercard of the Lomachenko-Campbell on the 31st of August, but replay showed the final blow came after Edwards had already taken a knee. The result was therefore overturned, and although WBC President Mauricio Suleiman said moments afterward that a direct rematch will be ordered, the Londoner has decided to move up a weight. In a letter to Suleiman, Edwards wrote, "It actually scared me about how much I was putting my health on the line, and I can't risk causing damage to myself, as health is the single most important thing in life." True story. There we go. Elsewhere, Kell Brook insisted that he showed the blueprint of how to beat Gennady Golovkin, but admits his defeat had lasting ramifications. Brook, then the IBF welterweight champion, moved up 2 divisions to challenge world middleweight champion Golovkin 3 years ago, but had his eye socket broken in a 5th round defeat. There are still talks of a bout with Amir Khan. Here's what Kell had to say about that fight.
I'm not running away from that fight. I've got his number. To this day, I think we're both at this stage of career now where we can lock horns and get it on. I believe it can happen now. I believe it can happen. The fans need to see this fight.
And also local Sheffield man Johnny Nelson gave his view on that bout.
You know what, this fight, I thought people are going to get so frustrated because it's almost happened, it's not happened. I still think it sells. I still think there's interest there from the public. I think it's the biggest fight for both fighters, and I think there's still a massive appetite for it. Again, it's about, you know, every dancer needs a partner, so at the end of the day, these guys need to get it together, get their heads together, get around the table and say, right, let's get it done, and no messing about, so it's most important.
Right, well, that's your lot from me. I'll be back next week with some more boxing news. In the meantime, gloves up and protect yourselves at all times. Back to the studio.
I'm Dennis Taylor, co-author of the Amazon bestseller Intimate Warfare, the true story of the Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward boxing trilogy. You know, writing this book was a labor of love for John J. Raspanti and myself. We enjoyed every minute of the process and considered it a privilege to tell the tale of one of the most electrifying boxing trilogies in the history of this sport. Intimate Warfare traces the collision course of Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward from their earliest days through their 3 epic fights, as well as the aftermath of this great rivalry, which culminated in one of the greatest friendships in boxing. Intimate Warfare has received a 4.5-star rating from readers and was endorsed by Hall of Famers Harold Letterman and Joe Cortez and 2-time Trainer of the Year Virgil Hunter. Our foreword was written by Ray Boom Boom Mancini, another one of the greatest blood and guts fighters of our time. Get your copy today at Amazon.com.
And if you're joining us right now, just to remind you of how we arrived at this point, there was a big left hand that Otto Wallin landed in the 3rd round. They used replay. Originally, the cut happened, and the referee, Tony Weeks, thought it was a clap. They used replay to say, no, it was a clean punch, which means if the fight is stopped, there's a new heavyweight champion. It would be 30-1 underdog Otto Wallin. Let's see what Fury can do here in the last half of this 7th round as he is stalking. Wallin has been so game, so determined to stay the course with his plan.
Welcome back to the Ringside Boxing Show. I'm Dennis Taylor with John J. Raspanti. and we are joined right now by the heavyweight contender who carved up the face of Tyson Fury on September 14th at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. And a lot of fans are still questioning why referee Tony Weeks did not stop that fight in the later rounds when, by his own admission, Fury was having huge problems seeing out of his right eye. Tyson Fury survived the 12-round fight to win a unanimous decision over Otto Wallin that night, and if the fight had been stopped by a cut, Wallin would have been the winner of that fight. Otto Wallin is on the line with us right now, all the way from his home in Sweden. Otto, welcome to the Ringside Boxing Show. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you very much for having me.
Oh, you bet.
Oh, our pleasure, man.
We're thrilled.
You came very close to pulling off one of the biggest upsets in heavyweight history. If you had won this fight, we would have rated it with the Buster Douglas victory over Mike Tyson. You were essentially a huge underdog at the sports books that night, but you hit him with that big left hand in the third round, and you cut him very badly over the right eye, actually 2 cuts. Did you recognize immediately how much damage you had done and that you may well have changed the fight at that moment, or was it something you came to realize as the fight progressed?
No, actually, I realized it right away. I hit him, and then I think there was a clinch or something because the referee broke us up. Then I saw he was bleeding, and I knew that I hit him. So I was almost celebrating because I closed my fist and because I saw that he was bleeding a lot and there was a bad cut. And you can see that on the tape too.
Yes.
Yep. We all heard your trainer, Joey Gamache, instruct you in the corner to target that cut, which is what almost any fighter would have done. How much did the presence of that cut affect the way you fought the next 9 rounds? Did you wind up fighting a much different fight than maybe what you had drawn up in training camp?
In training camp we were focusing a lot on the body because he has a big body and he's a big guy and he has good defense and it's hard to hit to the head. And I felt like the body work was working in the fight. But then I hit him with that and I cut him, and maybe I focused a little bit too much on the cut because I think I forgot about the body a little bit. But the body was working, but at the same time I knew that with any punch at any time the fight could be stopped. So it was hard not to focus on that cut.
Yeah.
No, let me ask you a little bit about what ESPN did. Tyson Fury's corner was originally under the impression that cut had been caused by an accidental headbutt. That's what referee Tony Weeks initially told them. After watching the replay, the Boxing Commission corrected that ruling. They discovered that it was actually your left hand that had cut him. And the ESPN TV crew told his corner that a punch had caused the damage. ESPN broadcaster Bernardo Osuna passed that information along to Tyson Fury's people, which drew a lot of criticism from the boxing media and boxing fans who felt ESPN had overstepped its role. How did you feel about what happened? Did ESPN broadcast crew do the wrong thing that night?
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, the crew, the ESPN crew, they have no business in doing that, and that's not part of their job. So I felt that they shouldn't have done that, and I think that was a mistake by them. And because they're not supposed to do that, so they're not supposed to get involved, and that's how I feel.
Yeah. You know, Otto, you've had a few weeks to think about the fight. I'm sure you talked to a lot of people about it. Is there anything now when you think about it that if you had to do it all over again, you could change? You know, would you have stuck more to your game plan? I mean, this is Monday morning quarterbacking, so this is no biggie. But I'm just curious, do you think if you mixed it up a little, you would have gone to the body and to the head? Do you think you might have beaten him if you had mixed it up more instead of concentrating more on the eye?
Yeah, I think I started off the fight very well. And then I tired a little bit, like in the mid-rounds and towards the end. But then I came back good in the 12th round, and I hurt him in that round. I think maybe I should have paced myself a little bit better. Maybe took a round off. Maybe I would have taken a round off to be fresh for the later rounds. But I think that's all experience. This was my first time on the big stage, so it's a lot of pressure, but I think I'm gaining a lot of experience from this fight, and I'm gonna go back, work even harder and just look at the tape and realize what I could have done better.
Yeah, I've asked that question to a lot of people, a lot of boxers, about when they lose a fight, it's devastating, but in a sense you feel like you really learned a lot. Is that how you're taking this? That you might have lost, but in a lot of ways you won.
Yeah, I feel like I won in a lot of ways. I would have liked to win the fight, of course. That's why I was there, and I was hoping to do that. And I think I could have done that too, but I left it all in the ring, and I left it all in training, and you can't really be disappointed when you do that. Because so it's gonna be a great experience for me, a great learning experience, and I'm gonna get better from this. And I'm only 28, so I got a lot of time to still improve and get back on the big level and beat these guys.
Yeah. Tyson, he's a big guy, as you said a little while ago. Physical guy, moves a lot. But is he a big puncher? I mean, we've always wondered about that. Did you feel any of his power?
He's a big guy, and any heavyweight can punch and knock you out. So you guys got to hit him in the right spot. But I was never hurt or anything in this fight.
Yeah, I didn't think. I was watching it, of course. It didn't look like you were ever buzzed at all. So obviously we know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Tyson Fury, he's difficult to fight, right? Because he can move and everything, and he's kind of awkward, right? Is that pretty much sum it up? Did he move better than anybody for such a big guy of any fighters that you fought in your career?
Yeah, at least in fights. But I fought a lot of top guys too. But yeah, he's probably the biggest, the best mover. But I think that our game plan was working, and I took a lot of that away from him. So I think that we had a good game plan, hitting the body and doing different things. And I felt that he was working, and I was hitting him a lot, and that the numbers says I hit him a lot too, and a lot more than these other guys.
Yeah, you did.
Otto, over these past 2 weeks, what kind of changes have you noticed in your own standing in the sport? Is your promoter, Dmitry Salida, looking at some pretty attractive possibilities now that didn't exist before?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big difference. They're trying to keep that away from me right now because I'm at home and I'm training, but trying to keep my head off boxing a little bit. But they are working on that, and I had an update a few days ago, and there's a few different offers and really good offers coming in with different broadcasters and stuff. So I'm very happy about that, and it has changed a lot. And also in the boxing world, I get a lot of support on social media. People get a hold of me all over the world, and even in my hometown and in Sweden, there's a lot has changed since this fight, and a lot of media coverage in Sweden, abroad, and I'm very happy about that, of course.
Nice.
Yeah, you know what? I'll bet you've got so much energy now that you didn't have before, just because of that. It just kind of puts a bounce in your step, doesn't it, when good things are happening?
Yeah, exactly. And I've worked very hard over the years, and I sacrificed a lot, so I'm very happy that it's starting to pay off.
Yeah. Otto, is there any indication that Fury might consider fighting you again?
I haven't heard any, but maybe Dmitry or has heard anything, but I don't know.
Yeah, and you were just mentioning this. You got home to Sweden. The reception you got must have been fantastic, right? Were there fans and press waiting for you at the airport when you arrived?
Yeah, only press, because the fans didn't know about it. But there was media coverage, media people over at the airport, and then I did a few morning shows on the TV and different interviews, and then a lot of different stuff.
Do you find now when you're out that you're being recognized more than before? Is that happening? People recognize you?
Yeah, in my hometown, they will recognize me before too, but in Stockholm, the capital, a lot more people are recognizing me, and they come up to me and say that did a good fight, and they respect me and all of that stuff. So it's really nice, actually.
I would say so.
This is the Ringside Boxing Show from Monterey, California. I'm Dennis Taylor with John J. Raspanti. We are talking to heavyweight contender Otto Wallin, all the way from Sweden. Otto, John and I are old guys, so we remember Ingemar Johansson. Sweden had a world champion in 1959. That was Ingemar Johansson. He took the title away from Floyd Patterson. But in 1970, and this is something else John and I remember, the sport was banned in your country, and it was illegal for the next 36 years until 2006. And I think you were 16 years old then. When did you start boxing, and how and why did you get into the sport?
I started boxing when I was 15. My brother and my father used to box, so that's probably why. And I was doing ice hockey and soccer before that. But then when I was 15, I started, and I just fell in love with boxing right away. I knew that it was what I wanted to do. It was a pretty good feeling to have at that age, because I just fell in love with it, and that was what I wanted to do.
Were you a boxing fan before you became a fighter? Did you follow the sport, watch fights on TV, that type of stuff?
I would watch some big fights, but only that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, because boxing wasn't big in Sweden because it was banned. So, but
sure,
of course, amateur boxing was always allowed. But yeah, I didn't watch too much, but I watched some, like Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, and Ingemar Johansson. So.
Yeah, you're tall, Otto. You're like 6'6". Was basketball ever an option for you? You could have played power forward or anything. Was that in Sweden? Was that there?
Yeah, no. Basketball is not too big in Sweden. But I used to play some with my friends. But we were mainly playing like ice hockey and soccer. So that was what we were doing.
So it was pretty instantaneous with you in boxing, huh? Because this seems to be, with Dennis and I, especially Dennis, have spoken to a lot of boxers, and it seems like you almost know immediately. There's just something about it you just love. Was that how it happened with you?
Yeah, exactly. Like from the first workout, it was crazy because I had done some training with my father at home just for fun. But then when I started, I just fell in love with it. And I came from doing team sports, and one of the things that I liked was that everything I put in, I got out of it, and everything was up to me. And I liked that with boxing, and there was so much to learn, and I felt like I was progressing every training, and it was just nice.
Yeah, Joey Gamache, a two-time world champion, who Dennis and I, of course, remember very well, has been your trainer since the beginning of your professional career. How did you connect with Joey?
I was fighting for a promoter named Team Sauerland over in Europe, and Joey was in Denmark. And I had the offer from my promoter to go over to Joey, start training with him, and I did, and we clicked right away. We had really good chemistry, and I really liked Joey, and yeah, we've been together since. So it's a really good relationship, and he's taught me very, very much inside the ring and outside the ring.
Yeah, that was my next question. Since you've been with Joey, he's helped you a lot, right? What more has he helped you with? You said in and out of the ring. How about the boxing part? Is it been your technique, or has he showed you more about jabbing or defense, or what more do you think you think of that he's really helped you with?
Yeah, one of Joe's biggest things is basics, good technique, and a good jab. And I remember like the first, I don't know, 1 or 2 years, we were pretty much just working the jab, to be honest. So, yeah, he's a big fan of the jab, and he made me a believer too. And good jab is so important, and we were working that a lot. And some trainings we were just using the jab.
Do you have a favorite punch that you love to throw? You might think about it too much, but it's just your favorite punch to let go, fire?
I gotta say the jab, but also the left uppercut to the liver. I got a few knockouts with that, so.
Yeah.
It's good coming from a southpaw, Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you box from the southpaw stance, as we know, and you're naturally left-handed. Or did somebody convert you? Do you do everything left-handed?
Yeah, I'm right, left-handed, but I throw with my right hand. But my father, he was a southpaw too, and he was left-handed, and I'm left-handed. So yeah, that's how I started.
I see. You know what? I want to ask you about your dad really fast because I saw the tail end of something about your father, and I know you were very close, and you said he boxed as well. Tell us a little bit about you and your father.
Yeah, my father, he was a great guy. He still was a trainer. When he passed away this May, he had a heart attack, and then we had a great relationship, and he taught me very much in boxing. And, of course, outside the ring, too. And he was always a big inspiration, and he believed in me a lot. So he's meant very much.
What kind of fighter was he?
He was a boxer. He had around, 20 amateur fights. But they say he was a fast southpaw and with a good jab and good basics. And, they say that he was really fast.
Otto, one issue when you took that Tyson Fury fight was that you hadn't yet faced any of the really top heavyweights, and he was just a huge step up in competition for you. What kind of opponent would you like to face next? Would you prefer to face somebody who can give you a chance to develop, or are you anxious to fight another elite opponent right away if that opportunity presents itself? What are you looking for?
Yeah, Tyson was a huge step up, but apart from that, I had only fought one round in 18 months. So, and that's way too little, of course. So,
yes.
Wow.
But for my next fight, I don't want to throw out any names, but of course I want to have the right fights now. There's a lot of offers coming in, so I need right fights. I still need more experience, and with only that one round in 18 months, I think I need a few rounds to get back. If the right offer comes for one of the elite guys, then we'll consider it. But for right now, I'm thinking maybe, a couple of good fights and then aim for one of the bigger guys.
Did the sparring improve for you when you came to the U.S.? Find better sparring partners?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it improved so much because I was living in Denmark before, and I had a couple of guys that were cruiserweight, but it's not heavyweight. And in New York, I got so much sparring that it's like every day you can have a new guy, a new heavyweight. And it's just great, for this camp. I don't know how many guys we had, but maybe, 10 or 12 different guys that I've been sparring. So that's just changed a lot, and it's really helping me because I think the sparring is the most important training.
Yeah. You mentioned you want to get back in the ring soon, or obviously we're only having one round in 18 months. Do you have anything in mind? Like, you don't know anything yet, right? You said they're kind of keeping you away from it, but do you think to yourself, well, I want to be back in there in January, or are you thinking about that in your mind at all? You want to be back as soon as possible?
Yeah. My team had asked me, and I said early next year because I think this was a tough fight. Then I should recover, Still train, of course, but no sparring and stuff for a few weeks, and then I get back into that and I'll be back in the ring early next year.
Yeah, Dennis and I saw that your name had been thrown out there when Joseph Parker had to step away from his match with Derek Chisora. I don't know if you want to say anything, but your name was mentioned as a possible opponent for Chisora. That's a pretty quick turnaround, right? I mean, that's pretty soon.
Yeah.
Would you even say something like that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything, but the timing is not great because I'm at home now and I just had this fight. So if the timing was better, I definitely would consider that fight. But for right now, the timing isn't great.
Yeah.
Just a couple more for you, Otto. When did you first come to America? What was the first time you ever saw it?
I think it was June 6th, 2017.
Oh, so real recently. What were your first impressions? First time you laid eyes on America? What did you think?
I came to New York. I stayed in Harlem on the west side in a Spanish neighborhood. I liked it. I liked the people that I felt like people are very respectful mostly. and they would help me out if I was asking for directions, and I just felt that people were nice and helpful, and of course New York is a big city. There's a lot of bright lights and a lot of everything, so it's a lot different from where I'm from. I'm from a town, Sundsvall, it's only got 100,000 people, so it's a lot different from where I'm from.
Had you ever been to a place that had so many cars?
I don't think so.
Yeah, man. I went to New York for the first time back in 1976, and just the skyscrapers and the cars and just the sheer volume of people just blew me away. I was from a little town in Colorado, so it's just amazing to me. So I can imagine what it must have been like for you. Okay. What do you like better about Sweden than the U.S.? What's better in Sweden than it is here?
What's better over here? I think I don't want to get into politics too much, but I think we got a good system.
Go ahead.
We got a good
yeah, you do.
We got good schools, free schools. We get free lunch in school, and we got free healthcare. So
nice.
That's something that makes me proud being from Sweden, because I think that everyone gets a shot at life.
That's
and everybody
great.
Can become something, go to university, that's free. So there's a lot of possibilities.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Yep. Half of our population has to listen to that right now, because we got a big election coming up, and John and I are on exactly the same page with you. We want what Sweden has. Wonderful place. Wonderful place. Yeah. So, all right, John, you got anything else, man, for Otto?
Well, I did think of something, but I couldn't sneak it in there. Otto, when you were making that walk to fight Tyson Fury, can you tell me, because guys like us, like Dennis and myself, we were watching it, but I always wonder what it's like when you're making that ring walk. Do you remember what you were thinking as you were walking towards the ring to fight Tyson Fury? Were you thinking about your earlier in your life, or what you had to do in the fight, or was your brain all over it? Because, people are reaching for you, and it's a crazy moment. It's such a big thing to fight for the heavyweight title. Can you tell me what was going on, what you were thinking about?
Yeah, in the dressing room, I was focusing on the fight, what I was going to do. I was talking to Joey, and we went over the stuff. But also, Joey, and he didn't even have to remind me, but he also reminded me, like, this is for your father. Remember what you did when you were a kid. You were training at home, and that kind of stuff. So I was thinking about that. But then walking to the ring, that's always nervous and nerve-wracking. But then once the name is announced and people start cheering and you walk to the ring, that's a good feeling. And to be honest, I wasn't overwhelmed with the experience, and I felt very, I felt good. I felt that I belong here, and I was looking forward for the fight, and I felt very ready for him, and I felt good, like it was just another fight. And then when I came into the ring, I saw my family on the stands and my friends and all of that. So I felt good. I kept having some contact and interactions with them. And then when he made his ring walk, I just tried to keep my eyes off of that and keep my mind on the fight. So, it was just, it felt good. I'm actually a little bit surprised at how good it felt.
How big did he look when you were standing there getting the final instructions from the ref in the ring center?
I mean,
he's
first
big.
of all, I'm not sure that he's 6'9", to be honest. But I told him that at the press conference too, when we had a face off. I said, you're not really 6'9", and he said something about that he was 7 feet or whatever he said, but I don't know. But I'm not sure. But I fought a lot of big guys over the years and sparred a lot of big guys, so he wasn't intimidating in any way. But he's a big guy.
He's a big guy.
Man,
he's quite a right, Otto. He's quite a character outside of the ring, right? So, I mean, did you find him kind of amusing before the fight about some of the things he was saying, and like saying he was 7 feet tall? Was that like you were just shaking your head going, boy, this guy is something else?
Yeah, I think I handled everything good. Like he couldn't get into my head, and I think that he probably wasn't sure about me, and I felt that in a way that he couldn't figure me out, and I think that I made it good. And then on the weigh-ins, he tried to bully me a little bit, scream to me and stuff. But I was ready for that too, and I answered him back. So it all worked out really good.
Sure did.
You consider him the number one heavyweight in the world? There's also Wilder and Joshua and Bruce. Yeah.
I said that he was the best heavyweight in the world before the fight, and I say it now too. I see that it's some people asking if he's the same and all of that after this performance, but they got to understand that I'm a good fighter, and I made it a hard fight, and it wasn't that he's off or anything. I think just that I'm a good fighter, and I made it tough for him.
Yeah, you did.
Yes, you did. Yeah, and I'll tell you what, you're an easy guy for us to root for, and we can't wait to see you again. So, man, it's been fun talking to you. Otto Wallin is 20-1, 13 knockouts, and he came very close to shaking up the heavyweight division in a major way 2 weeks ago. We are looking forward to seeing Otto Wallin in the ring in the future and just seeing what the future holds for him. Otto, great talking to you today on the Ringside Boxing Show. Thanks so much for making some time for us today, and let's do it again sometime, okay? After your next fight.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Otto.
Thank you.
Otto Wallin on the Ringside Boxing Show, all the way from Sweden. Hey, do you like this podcast? Do us a solid and tell other boxing fans about us. Post Ringside Boxing Show on your social media outlets and help us grow. Also, if you haven't yet discovered the #1 website in the world for daily boxing news, you got something to do right now. We update ringsideboxingshow.com with the biggest headlines and most interesting stories every single day, 365 days a year. If you are a hardcore boxing fan, this should be your first stop every morning, and it might be the only boxing site you need to visit all day. Discover us right now, and you will be amazed, guaranteed. ringsideboxingshow.com. We want to thank our expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and my partner here, John J. Raspanti, for their weekly contributions to this show, along with our outstanding British correspondent, Paul McLaughlin. And another huge thanks to today's featured guest, the man who nearly brought down a giant, heavyweight contender Otto Wallin. And, of course, thank you, Ringside Nation, for being a part of our worldwide audience again today. Keep your chin tucked, and we will talk to you again next week on the Ringside Boxing Show.
Well, it's a great day for me to whoop somebody's ass. It's a bad day, so you better get off of my back. You might get cold cocked if you cross my path. It's a great day